team.
Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team. And what we're going to be talking about today is actually something that I've been thinking about for a little while here, and then a viewer went and sent me a message and asked me to talk about it. So this is the perfect time, and let's just jump into it. And it's really the role of Beastmen in the current meta. Now, this is something where Beastmen, they haven't been seen for a while. You know, they don't really have any answers to the Demon Prince because they don't have any war machines. And so, really, they just kind of disappeared. At the Brawler Bash tournament there, I told Once Bitten that he should probably take his Beastmen because there won't be many there. And it turned out there were 0. Out of 92 people-ish, there was 0 Beastmen players. So that's how little of a showing we're seeing of the Beastmen right now. And, you know, at the time I was saying he should be taking Beastmen simply because of how there wouldn't be many there. And so to win Beastmen race, his odds have been really good. In fact, it would have been 100%. But I started thinking about after that maybe Beastmen are going to be doing a little bit better now in the current meta. Now, for those who are looking at this video in the future, pretty much what this current meta is right after the Wood Elf release. And it's really just because right now we're in an age of elves. Back before, if we go back a few months type thing, it's really the age of monsters and 1+ saves. You're seeing these demigryphs all over the place. You're seeing the Mournfang. You're seeing the Demon Princes flying around the skies and really dominating. But then all of a sudden, we have the High Elves coming out. We have the Dark Elves. We have the Wood Elves. And these are all competitive armies that you can start really seeing in the current meta. I mean, at the Brawlers, there were 0 Wood Elves, but I can definitely see them being in regular tournaments that aren't based off just straight up victory points. Now, let's take a look at what this actually means for this shift in meta and how the Beastmen can actually be taking advantage of this. So like I said before, the big real problems that they had is that they had no war machines. I mean, you could take double Cygor and throw rocks, but they're so expensive. And of course, they're just sitting there waiting for war machines to kill them. So really with no answers to the Demon Prince is running around causing lots of issues, and you just can't do anything there. You are also dealing with a whole bunch of 1+ save type of units and really armies as well. They can be really be based around armor. And sure, you did actually have the Bestigors. Bestigors can get in there and they can do some good against this type of armor. However, at the same time, that's one unit. And if they're careful just to kind of redirect or avoid that one unit, you're not really doing very much, right? If you have your regular Gore, they're only strength 3. If they have the banner on them, then they're strength 4. But a 1+ is still just going to a 2+. So it just didn't really work out very well. And that's exactly why you didn't see them being used very much. People, Beastmen players got really frustrated with them and they pushed them aside. Well, what are you seeing now? Well, now you're seeing High Elf armies, and it's all these armies based off, well, actually, there's a lot of different mixes there, but some of the big ones you see is rare, or the ones that I do are like the Monster Mash. You see ones which are all shooty, so they have lots of bolt throwers and arrows and stuff like that. You see the mixes where they have the big units of blocks and stuff like that, where they try and going for the 3+ ward. And as well, you can see a lot of different builds there. Then going on to the Dark Elves, you can kind of see the same thing. You can see very shooty armies. You can see the super combat armies with the big elites, where you have all the Witch Elves, and you have all the Dark Elves set up, well, not Dark Elves, the Executioners, to get in there and hit really hard. You can see the army set up where they're all to run around and do stuff like that. And at the same time, you have your Wood Elves, where all of a sudden you might be seeing a more solid combat line now where they're trying to deal with you. Of course, shooting is still going to be very popular. And really, when you start seeing this shift, it's 2 main things that you have to really keep in mind. One, it's a reduction in toughness, right? Whereas before you saw mainly toughness 4 armies, Now you're seeing Toughness 3 armies. And so for an army like Beastmen, which can get lots of attacks and lots of hits, that's a big deal. Plus, from seeing before as a 1+ save, we're starting to see a lot more of 5+ or even no armor when you're looking at the Witch Elves, which is again starting to go in the favor of the Beastmen. So really, how can they be taking advantage of this? And I really think it's really the old customary builds, or like the type of builds that I would do, I would call those customaries, where you have your big huge blocks of gore, you'll still have your best of gores for whenever you need them, and these types of units can get into there, and for starters, your toughness is going to cause them sometimes some issues, right? Especially if you're talking like Witch Elves or something where they're only strength 3 or something like that, toughness 4 can be a big deal. As well, Beastmen can do very well with their magic phase. Between at the back having their little stone that all their little circle can go around and benefiting from that plus the cast stuff, really you can be doing the whole wild form battery, and all of a sudden you can be toughness 5, you can be toughness 6, and what this means is all of a sudden all these strength 3 things, they're only wounding on a 6, be they in combat or shooting, right? If you're facing a lot of arrows and you're toughness 5 or doesn't, you don't even need 6, you just get to toughness 5, all these arrows are needing 6s to wound you. And Beastmen models, they're not really that super expensive either. So it's a whole thing where like, oh no, I got shot and I lost a couple of Beastmen. Who cares? You got a whole horde of these guys. And then meanwhile, once you get in there, you can probably weather their attacks, and then coming back, you still have hatred, so you're going to be hitting you on a 4+ rerolled, hitting 75% of your attacks, and then all of a sudden they're low toughness, so you're wounding on a 4+, maybe even a 3+ if you have wild farm off, or if you have the banner or anything like that gives a +1 strength, and you can do a lot of damage back to these elite elves. And it might be a thing where, I mean, they might win combat the first turn or something like that, but you can grind them down because you'll have the numbers, and it's a whole thing where they're elite and you can grind these guys down. As well with this, I mean, at first it's kind of bad that, man, we have really crappy, expensive monsters, and we have no war machines, and this is all garbage. We have no, demigriff type of knight units. Well, then again, right now, because of the meta is still dealing with keeping that Demon Prince in check, or even with the current meta where there's all these repeater bolt throwers, well, there's lots of war machines out there. So in not having a monster and not having war machines means that whenever you face them, they're like, I guess I'm just going to be shooting regular Beastmen? I guess. And then at the same time, you can have some pretty good units to go after them. You have your Harpies, which can be very fast and get in there and take those war machines out, or at least tie them up, although you almost don't need to do that, but you have the tools to all of a sudden get these points. At the same time, one of the major things you have is still something, say, like the Doom Bull that has the ram horn. And this is absolutely murder to some of these elf armies that are all about like, okay, we get always strike first, we get a lot of attacks. You know what happens when you put your Doom Bull with the ram horn helm into a unit of Witch Elves? The Witch Elves go poof, and they all die. Because you get like a bajillion attacks, they'll hit lots of their attacks, they'll wound lots of their attacks, then you have like a 1+ save rerollable, and for all those you make, which will be a bajillion, you get 3 attacks back. And then all of a sudden, you're just decimating the entire unit. You also have some other tricks you can use too. You could go with a Jabber Scythe, and he runs up and he goes sideways to a unit of Witch Elves or whatever you have and they're going to go and decimate them. But at the same time, that does wounds back. Now that's a funky little cool trick, but at the same time, again, it's really expensive. You're wanting to avoid having war machines having any good targets, so you probably don't want to do that. Yeah, probably not the best of ideas. So really, it's the Doom Bull. Of course, then you have to keep the Doom Bull safe, so you want to make sure that you have a unit of Minotaurs he can go around with, just to kind of give himself a little bit of a lookout serve for a while, so he can actually get into combat. You want to make sure that maybe, if you're not going with Well, you could maybe even sneak on the Charm Shield if you're not going for the rerollable. Oh, no, actually, the rerollable is separate. So I think you could sneak in. No, because the Ramhorn is armor. So you can't go for the Charm Shield. So you're going to need that other unit there to just allow him to get into combat. And really with that, all you have to do is throw him into combat as fast as you can to make sure you're not going to be taking that damage back. As well, you have access to some really cheap units to redirect anything you don't want to really have to deal with, or to take advantage of the units with Frenzy. That would be the units like just little small units of Ungor, right? Take 5 Ungor, good to go for the little scouts, and they can just run ahead and redirect all you want. Or hell, they can be just running up the flanks and trying to get to War Machines or whatever you really need. But really, there's just a cheap unit that's going to allow you to then go with your big blocks and get them in there. Again, something like Wood Elves or the Dark Elves, where they're the armies where they're very fast and they're running around. The good thing about being Beastmen is it's also kind of like being like Orcs, where when I have all my hordes, I am going from like board edge to board edge, and you're almost running your army like a net. You're spacing out as much as you can to make sure they can't sneak around you, and then you're just trying to sweep around and try and catch as much as you can. If you're board edge to board edge, you can just walk up the whole thing, but normally you have to say, okay, these guys are going to get past, and I'm going to try and catch as much as I can and just get all of those points. So really, I mean, I'm not trying to come on here and say, you know what, if you want to win a tournament, take Beastmen. Beastmen are going to be the next dominating army. I mean, even with all that they have going with the like little tricks I've been talking about and how things have been going in their advantage, it's not exactly like they're the answer to Dark Elves or anything like that. It's still going to be a really tough match, and sure, you're going to get that one thing where the Doom Bolt goes and explodes the Witch Elves, but you still have the other units that are really going to put up a good fight, and by far could, I mean, still maybe beat Beastmen on average. The big thing I'm trying to say here is that as Beastmen players, you are going from a meta where it's like, well, if I go to a tournament, I'm going to pretty much have my teeth kicked in, to a meta where like, you know what? The odd time I might go up against that type of army still, but the wider range of what I'm seeing now is stuff that I actually do fairly okay against, right? You can now go into a tournament and expect to be somewhere more around like the middle of the pack type thing. So that's really I want to come from this and saying like, hey, if you're a Beastman player, get in there and enjoy the meta while you can, because, you know, right now we're in the Age of Elves. And going on next to the future books, we're looking at things like Bretonia, and then who knows what's going to change with Ninth. And really just, I would say if you're a Beastman player, get out there and play some games, because now could be your time. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye.